Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the RK Leadership Podcast, where we empower tomorrow's leaders through the sharing of knowledge, experience, and inspiring stories. I'm your host, 𝗿𝗶𝗀𝗃, and today with me is my special guest, Chantal Landreville. She's an author, a communication and love coach, and I'll let her kind of walk us through her life and give us a little bit more about her background. But before doing that, I want to take this moment to thank you so much for being with us here today. I greatly appreciate your time with me.
Well, I'm grateful. I'm always grateful for the opportunity to have a chance to share the message that I love to pass on, which is all about love.
Awesome. It's going to be a lot of love talking today.
Oh, are we ever? Because it's like such a wide, most people think about love from a romantic perspective, and it's applicable to so many different areas of our life. And you did such a great job pronouncing my name.
Thank you. I tried not to butcher it, so I appreciate that. Awesome. So why don't we get right into it? So Chantal, why don't you tell us your story and how you got to where you are today?
Oh, wow. How much time do we have? Okay.
Lots of time.
I'll give you the long, short story of it. So how did I become a love relationship coach and kind of a communication specialist? So I'll focus on that. So from a very younger age, I would say as soon as I was 19 to 26, I was always interested in understanding how the human mind worked. I was a very curious person. And when I became single, I was in a long-term relationship from about 19 to 26. I left the relationship because my heart, my soul was calling me and saying, I'm not with the right person, because he wanted to get engaged, have kids. And something in me was saying, there's something bigger, there's something more. I didn't feel right. So it took me a year to make that decision, which we all know when we've been in relationships sometimes that we feel are not right. It takes us a long time to leave. It's hard to leave.
That's right.
And when I finally made the decision to leave and did it, I wrote down a long list of everything I wanted to experience and do and try, which took me almost 10 years to go through. But during that time, I started dating again and realized by my own experiences that, my God, there was a lot of problems happening, and I couldn't get why people couldn't be their true authentic selves, that they weren't honest, that there was just a lot of bullshit happening. Yep. So my roommate and I at the time decided to kind of do a documentary around all of this. So I was already diving into it like in depth and questioning people and doing like hot table talks. And sadly, we didn't end up ever doing or delivering the documentary because she got very, very sick. But that was the beginning of the end. I was fascinated with everything that had to do with love, dating, and relationships, self-development. I read everything. I attended every possible conference. I would, anything to throw me into that world to try to understand human behavior behind it, I was in it. And I came to understand when I woke up at 38 years old that I was like, okay, I'm ready to settle down right here. I know a lot of stuff. Let's see what's going to happen. And I kept attracting unemotional available men all the time. And I was like, why am I repeating this thing, knowing everything I know? But here's the thing I realized, and I see it today, happening even more because we're so like overwhelmed with information. I was over consuming information. I wasn't applying the work. I wasn't embodying the actual lessons I was learning. It was just like, yep, eat the chips, but like not really putting it into practice. So the journey kind of took me to another form of therapy, which I finally understood where the source of my issue was coming from. And it was me, because we were having this conversation before we started, we often love to blame other people for our misery, our problems, why things aren't happening. And I was like, I'm the common denominator. Why do I keep attracting these people that are unavailable? I'm the person that keeps attracting them. So there's something wrong with me. And through this special form of therapy, I understood very, very quickly that men for me represented abandonment, because I lost my father when I was very young. And I think today we have these conversations a lot more, but back then, that was what, almost 20 years ago. No, not that. I'm not going to age myself that much. So 48, like 12 years ago, it wasn't a typical conversation of understanding where you come from to understand how you show up in relationship, which is the root of my work today. It's like you really need to understand how you were raised, who were your mother and father, how they showed up, because they're our first love. Yes. Whether we like it or not, whether they were there, whether they were good, whether they were not, whether they were bad, it's our first example of love. So to make sure we understand the relationship we saw as a child as them coming together and our individual relationship with our respective mother and our father. So that moment on, I was like, okay, how do I rewire my brain now? Because I've been doing this thing for 38 years. You don't change overnight.
That's right.
So the rewiring is where the real work starts. And I always say, when you have the awareness of identifying the problem, that's 50% of the work that's already done, because now you're aware of it. You know where it's rooted from. So you can actually create what I call that inner chat and be able to observe yourself now saying, okay, am I starting to do the same thing again? How can I change this old behavior? How can I change my usual go-to, even how I pick up men, how I filter men? Like, I need to do things differently. So fast forward, I finally met my now fiance when I turned 44 years old. So there's a lot of hope for people out there that are still single, looking for love, that think that it's never going to happen. So this was like an 18-year journey of being single, wow. Which is a long ass time. And I realized that it's one thing to attract the right partner, which in my case took so long, but it's a whole other thing being in relationship. Mm-hmm. And I realized with what I had learned over the years, because of being curious and my thirst to just for knowledge and to know more about the human behavior, that I was lucky that I had learned this stuff to be able to apply it in my relationship from the beginning. So most people go into relationship and don't even know how to be in relationship. Mm-hmm. And we've never been taught the skills on how to be in relationship. Think about it. We go to school, they teach us like math, algebra, which I still, until today, I'm not an engineer, so I've never used it in my life. But they don't teach us emotional intelligence, communication skills, right. And just relational to another human being on how we can work through conflict and issues, especially not today. People are like in their phones, so yep. Antisocial, where when we were young, it was like, go figure it out on your own. You're out there. If you had a fight, you had to figure it out with your friend. And I think that we can learn as much as we want, have the awareness, but you still need the life experience. The life experience, it's like the example is, I can tell you not to touch the oven because it's hot. But until you touch the oven that's hot and you get burnt, you'll never understand what it hot being meaning, right? So touch the damn oven. You're going to regret it, but at least you'll understand and you'll never do it again. So I through COVID, I birthed my baby, Raise Your Love Signal, which is the method that I teach now as a love and relationship coach. But I was previously in sales for 20 years. In the wine industry. Mm-hmm. And in the wine industry, what I did was wine and dine people. And what do we do when we're breaking bread, having a little wine? We end up talking about relationships all the time. Mm. And as a salesperson, I quickly realized my talent was I paid attention. I listened and I got curious about people. So when you do that, people will literally vomit their lives to you. And I would naturally share what I had learned. I love to just pass on the information that I had learned. Why don't you try this? Did you think about that? Did you know this? Did you know that? And customers would always circle back a couple of weeks later saying, you know what, by the way, that conversation really helped. I tried this and you were right. So I was just naturally coaching without even realizing that was happening.
That's right.
I guess my love for connecting with another human being has always been there, and it still is. So created the Raise Your Love Signal method during COVID, because I went from traveling the world globally, all of a sudden being home with like everybody else. Yeah. And I was just called to doing this. I was like, I think there's a massive market about even though there was more conversation around being in a relationship, most people wait till shit hits the fan to go get help. And my teachings is more like being proactive instead of reactive. So how can you learn while you're single, for example, to be in a relationship before you get into the relationship? So I was having a conversation yesterday at a restaurant with these people that we met beside the table, and I was asking the question because two of the people were guys, and I was like, would you ever consider hiring a love and relationship coach? And they were like, well, yeah, I never thought about it because it's still not really known. It's still fairly recent. And the two of them said, well, probably when I would have a problem or if I'd have an issue in my relationship, I'd go seek it out. And I was just like, bam, there you go. And then I started doing my spiel where, why do we wait?
Yes.
Build the toolbox before. Understand how to manage conflict. Understand your communication style. Are you even communicating your needs, right? So that's how I started the business. And now I'm so passionate about it. It's what I love to talk about. And I think it's more important than ever because we're so disconnected as humans, but we have never been so desperate to experience human connection.
That's right.
So what the hell's happening? It's like I tell people all the time, like, okay, so what do you do about it? And if I break it down, because every time you say love and relationship coach, people always make it about romantic relationships. Right. And I say 95% of what I teach is applicable to a coworker, to a friend, to a family member. You can apply everything I talk about in my book and into my program just with another human being. So how do we connect? How do we connect with a human to a level other than this superficial stuff that we experience on a daily basis? And I'll give you the example. We'll go to networking events, for example. We met at a networking event when you really think about it. Yeah. And I've been trying to really pay attention to my conversation and the questions that I ask someone other than, hey, how are you? What do you do? Why are you here? Kind of thing, because it leads to, I don't want to say a dead end conversation, but pretty flat line, right? And I remember reading an excerpt from a book. I love her. What's her name again? Vanessa Van Edwards. She's a communication expert and specialist. And you want to find, when you're connecting with someone new, a common ground, something that you mutually share together. And it's like if you were going to tell me, okay, Chantal, I'll ask you, like, where are you from? Or I used to go to school in Montreal. No way, same. I went there too. And you'll automatically even notice the tone of voice changes because there's an enthusiasm, because we're sharing something common all of a sudden. And that starts creating a bond. So small little example, but here's what I realized. I was at a retreat last January for 4 days. I went there and I'm with 8 other people I've never met in my life. And the last day I'm walking on the beach, because I always love to go walk on the beach to process everything that I've just learned the last 4 days. And I'm like, how did we experience such in-depth human connection with complete strangers? And I'm trying to breaking it down. How did this happen, and how could I share it with other people? And it came to me in 3 ways. It was like super simple. 1, we created quality time.
Yes.
There was quality time. We were 4 days in a closed room together where there was no distractions, barely any phones, right? We were there to do, well, it was a bit of a self-development journey. But so quality time. Number 2 is that we created a safe space. So I don't feel judged. I feel I can share. And number 3 is that I got curious. We all got curious. Tell me more. Tell me your story. Where are you from? And not from what city, meaning like, what's your journey?
That's right.
And you can actually apply that with a complete stranger, which is what I did in those 3 days. I heard stuff that they said, I've never shared this with my family members, or my friends don't even know this about me. And you can share this with a fairly new person. You can share this with your husband, with your girlfriend. It's just about, think about it. when we go to a cafe or a meeting, we're all with our phones. And I don't know about you, but the phone really triggers me now. Because I've been doing this work, I just pay attention. Whenever there's even a phone on the table, even if it's upside down, the data shows that it's still a trigger point for people that I don't feel important. I feel I'll get interrupted. And for people that aren't comfortable communicating, for people that are introverted, it's a blockage. So they won't necessarily open up. So it's like, where do you make someone feel, I got you, we're together, I'm listening to you, and that you're getting curious about them?
No, that's absolutely right. I love that last piece especially. Lots to unpack here. So I'm going to try my best to, touch up on a few points that I've written down here. So one of the things that's super important, and I talk to a lot of people about this, and, I talked to you before this as well, the self-awareness piece.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people who struggle with self-awareness. How do you begin how do you find yourself? How do you come to terms with that self-awareness, and where do you start?
Such a great question. Thank you. Because I say all the time, the key to succeeding in all relationships is self-awareness.
100%.
The more you understand yourself, the more you can learn to communicate better. You can set your boundaries and you know your why. Why is this important to me, right? Most people will say, I want something, and you can ask why, and they don't even know. I ask people all the time, why do you want to be in a relationship? Do you even know what you want? Yeah, not really. I'm not sure. I think I want this. Well, okay, you're not clear.
Yeah.
So how can you attract something if you're not clear? And I want you to explain to me and be damn sure what's your why behind the want. So you can understand why you get triggered, why you get reactive. So you just become so much better at being another person for the person in front of you, because you stand ground in who you are. So where do you start? I think today we have the massive advantage with social media to have access to so much information. There's so much out there about self-awareness. So great podcasts, including one like yours. So it's get curious. For me, number one, curious and learn. Learn, get curious. I want to know more. Ask yourself questions and observe yourself. For me, that's why I was like, I want to understand why people think this way, and where is this coming from, and why do they think this way, but I don't.
Yeah.
So it's really learning to identify different ways without judgment. I always say, don't judge other people. It's not because you think a certain way that the other person is wrong. Today we're so afraid of I can't say this. I'm going to disturb this person. It has to be black or white. And it's like, what happened to the debate society, right? It's just honor and respect each other's way of thinking. So I would say learn, get curious, and then do an inventory when whatever life happens to all of us.
Yeah.
So when we go through a breakup, when we lose a job, when we lose a friend, when we have a good cry or we get angry, it's asking the question, what happened? Why did I react like this? What do I need to learn from this? And the more you can learn to ask yourself questions and kind of do the inventory, that's when you start getting to know yourself. We had Jeff's daughter last Friday. She got stuck on the 407, like the highway, like her car. She was in the left lane and the car stops out of nowhere. So of course you go into panic mode. I would even go into panic mode.
That's right.
She's 22 years old. She's very nervous already on the driving. She's just recently started driving. And, Jeff was very protective, of course, nurturing her and telling her what to do because she was crying, she was panicking. But as he got off the phone, I said, you know what, this is good because she needs to learn. This is life. Life happens to you,
yes.
And will teach you how to deal in a crisis eventually going forward and how you can manage it. And sometimes people are so afraid of pain. They're afraid of bad experiences. But I always say you grow through bad experiences.
100%.
You get to know who you are through bad experiences, right? If everything is always love and dovey and nothing happens to you, you go through life not even ever asking yourself a question.
That's right.
So for me, it's self-awareness piece is when you go through the trials of tribulations of life, instead of feeling like a victim, instead of asking yourself, why is this happening to me? It's more why is this happening for me? And how can I learn and grow and get to know myself better?
Absolutely. No, amazing. Those are amazing points. And I think, again, it's so important, the why. And it's also important to sit down and ask yourself questions. And I always tell my clients, get a blank piece of paper out and just start asking yourself questions, and you'll be able to get to know yourself a lot better.
100%. And I always say, when I do the why exercise, ask it 3 times, because the why the first time might not be the same reason as it is on the third. And you want to make sure it's for the right reason, right? Yep. So, for example, I had a client, she absolutely wanted to date a man that had high education. And I was like, why is that so important to you? She's like, I don't know. I grew up, I have my PhD, and I want to be around people that have a certain level of education. Yep. And I was like, well, why is that so important to you? And she started thinking, and she was like, well, I'm not sure if I would be with someone that wasn't as well educated that they could follow me in my life. And I said, well, what if you would meet someone that's actually super successful in life and never finished high school, but has learned, through the world, the school of life? She's like, I never thought about it that way. So I'm going to ask you a third time. Why is it so important to you? And then we got to the root that her parents put that shit in her head. Like, you have to be with a man that's highly educated. And I said, see, it's not your why, it's your parents' why.
That's right.
So it was like, oh my God, I never thought about it that way. So the why, you're so right, Rob. I always say, like, it's really important. Yep. And when you get to the root of it, what's the best thing about being clear on your why and knowing it's for the right reasons is that nobody will be able to stumble you or put a doubt in your head when that happens to all of us, especially in entrepreneurship. Sometimes, like, oh my God, am I doing the right decision? Should I be doing this? Especially, I don't like to do things the easy route or the way everybody says that they have to do it. I like to do things controversial it's just my way of thinking. I'm like, no, what do you mean I have to have a presentation? Everybody does it. Who cares? I don't want to have a presentation. So to really stick behind my why and and be grounded in that makes a difference when you're sure of it.
Absolutely. So it's funny. You talked about beliefs now.
Yes.
Right? And, I read a book where your beliefs are given, like, it's kind of, you grow up with these beliefs based on your family, your upbringing, culture, school, place of worship, wherever you want to be. And then you start believing that those are your beliefs, right? Now, again, when you get to adulthood, how do you overcome that? And again, because when you're talking about things like love and what you just mentioned, your beliefs are stuck back in someone else's, putting that shit in your head.
Yes.
So how do you get out of that?
Oh, I love your question. Yay! So yes, you're right. So when we're born pure. We come into this world and we have this like open mind of and then everything's decided for us between the age of 0 and 7 because we can't make decisions. We can't think. Our brain is starting to develop. So your parents pass on their beliefs. So, you're not allowed to eat this. You're afraid of snakes because I'm afraid of snakes. Yeah. So you pass on all these things. So it's interesting to think, like, even for me, I was like, well, I would really like to know all this stuff before I have kids, just to be aware of it. And again, this is a great conversation for us to have, because if you are a parent or you're about to become a parent, learn this stuff, because the more you are aware of it, you can make a difference and break the generational gaps that have been passed on from generation to generation.
Yep.
So even until when I was reading recently is that, the prefrontal cortex is not even developed until you're 25 years old, which is like, okay, I'm not an actual really adult that can really make my own decisions until that age, which is pretty late. So how do you go about breaking those? That's where self-awareness circles back. The more you can get to know who you are, not how you were raised and what you were told. So again, I'll say the same thing. Get curious with yourself. Why is this important to me? Do I really believe this belief that my mother and father passed on to me? And when we talk a lot about the buzzwords today, self-love, therapy, authenticity.
Yes.
What does authenticity really mean? It's learning to listen to that inner voice and really living your truth, not how you were raised, not what you were told and think you need to do. And it's really hard to get to that place, especially when culturally you're so like brainwashed. I didn't get to that place until I turned 49 years old, and I had been doing all this work and was very self-aware. But I would say getting to the place of authentic, but not giving a shit what everybody else thinks. It's like, I'm that person. Like, that's it.
Yep.
So that's why I think, again, really getting clear on the whys behind it, and it makes a difference because you can stand your ground and not be afraid to voice your voice and say, no, I want this because I know my why. It's like very, very clear.
That's right.
So it makes a difference. But I would say one thing that's a great exercise for people that are, if they're still developing their self-awareness, is writing down what you feel you can, hold on, let me start this again. Writing down past behaviors in relationships, whether they were romantic or not. So let's say you've failed or you've had a lot of problems with coworkers, because the same problems tend to surface at different levels in relationships. Romantic relationships trigger us more because we're closer to them, but we tend to show up in the same way in different areas of our life. So if I go with relationship, if you've had numerous failed relationships, write down, identify what are the behaviors that I had in my relationship that didn't service me in my relationship. So for example, maybe you were always a people pleaser. Maybe you were always a control freak and like never letting, your person have room to take their own space and let them take care of you. Maybe you were insecure and jealous. So what are those behaviors? Once you've identified them, it's like, who does Rob or Chantal need to become in my new relationship to make sure I don't repeat that same mistake? And I always say you only need to start with like 3. You can identify as many as you want, but we want to do these changes, baby steps, because they can be overwhelming. So I say identify the top 3, and then it's like, where can you start applying that in every area of your life on a daily basis on a small baby step? So again, you don't get overwhelmed. So let's say, for example, you're a people pleaser and it's hard for you to say no.
That's right.
So where can you learn to say no every day? Maybe even, you're used to getting up at 6, but you need that extra half hour of sleep. Well, it's like, no, today I'm going to sleep till 6:30 because I know my body needs it. I'm going to honor myself and give myself the love that I know. So where can you apply saying no in every area of your life? Because you're developing a new muscle.
That's right.
So it's kind of like if you wanted a 6-pack, unless you're naturally born with it, which I hate everybody that does. I mean, it's a small percentage of the population. You need to work at developing the muscle. And developing a 6-pack doesn't happen overnight.
No.
And then guess what? Once you develop your 6-pack, you have to maintain it. So that's what all these new muscles, when we're rewiring our brains, our beliefs, and the patterns that we've been taught from childhood, they don't change overnight. So it's like creating enough self-awareness by identifying what those rooted issues are, that belief, that pattern, and then kind of identifying who do you need to become, and then starting to put that practice on a daily basis. So I love giving examples because I think people relate to them. Vulnerability, for example, for me was a massive one, and I think it is a massive for a lot of people. I was self-sufficient all my life. I left my house when I was 17. I didn't come from money. I had to fend for myself. So, and I was the strong one in my group. I was always managing, organizing. And my roommate said one day, Chantal, if you can't be vulnerable with your own friends, how do you expect to be vulnerable one day in a relationship and be able to have experienced that closeness?
That's right.
And it was a really aha moment for me because I was like, she's so right. How can I change this? And how I started, once I've identified it, I was like, okay, who in my group do I feel safe with that I can say that I'm working on this and tell them what I need? So I called my best friend and said, Tina, okay, this is, I want to work on my vulnerable muscle here. And this is what I'm going to need from you. The day I will call you to share my whatever I need to share, I need you to not tell me what to do. I need you to just listen. I need you to not try to fix it. I need you to not give me advice unless I ask you for it. I basically need you to hold space for me. That's it. She was like, okay. Perfect. Do you know how long that call took me to do? And this was my best friend that I felt safe with. 4 months.
Wow.
4 months to make that call. And I'll never forget it. I was sweating. I was freaking out. I was so nervous and anxious when I decided to make the phone call. And I told her, I said, okay, Tina, today's the day. I'm like sharing my piece. And I can't even believe, considering how important it is, I still don't remember what that conversation was. But I remember hanging up the phone and saying, wow, that felt really good. Like, why am I not doing this more often? And so slowly but surely, I started doing that with her on a regular basis. Then I moved on to a second friend, a third friend. And then at work, I started saying no to things that when I didn't know things. I was a very proud person. I was just like, I'll figure it out on my own. And I was like, you know what? I don't know what it is. Please tell me. And so what happened by the time I got into my relationship, which was almost, let's say, a good 8-10 years later, I was able to receive the kind of love and providedness. Can you say the word providedness? Because he's an old school provider to me. I would have never been able to receive it if I hadn't worked on my muscle. So I had my 6-pack of vulnerability.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Chantal, for that. I want to talk about misconceptions when it comes to love. Now, what's the biggest myth people believe about love or relationships, and how do you help them rethink it?
You have so many great questions. I love this. Yay. So the biggest myth, there's a few big myths for me. One is that people think that there's always like the one and their soulmate. And I've learned over the years, for me, it's more about what about the one for now? And it's not by dismissing, is that we're projecting ourselves in the future too much and nobody knows what's going to happen. So why don't you learn to be with who you are now and be the best version of yourself all the time while you're with them?
Yes.
And I would say the second myth is people think relationships are easy and they get lazy and they don't invest in their relationships once they're settled. And once you are in the relationship, that's when the real work starts. And I know a lot of people don't like the word hard work or work. And I used to think, well, maybe I should change my way. But no, their work, anything that you want to succeed at takes work. It takes an investment. It takes like you being involved and caring and the willingness of wanting to always better yourself. So whether that's with your body, with your food intake, with, you want to get better at your job, it's work. So relationships are work, and people think they're easy and that they can just sit on their ass and do nothing. So that would be, I would say, the biggest myth. And the third for me is that people are really in love with the idea of being in love because we've been so rom-com and Disney-fied, but what we've been taught about love is not enough to sustain a long-term committed relationship.
Amazing. Now, again, can you walk us through what does some of that work consist of?
Specifically to relationships?
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, if you're single and looking for love, one of the things, the first exercise that I do 2 exercises with a lot of my clients. Number 1 is I ask them, what's your definition of love? And when I started my research and starting to write about the book, that was the first question I started asking myself. And I was like, holy shit, I'm not sure I can actually answer this question. And I've been studying this stuff for like 20 years almost. So how does the average person answer this question? So I started doing all these table talks for women because I was focusing on women. And it was interesting because what came out for me was everybody was making love about other people and never about themselves. And with research and data today, and even, with this whole therapy, self-love stuff, we all know that it starts with us.
Correct.
So if you do not love yourself first and can't be fully, and I'll explain a little bit about self-love if we have time, but if you are not fully on for you, your partner will love you as much as you love yourself. So it's really important to develop that relationship with yourself first. And I think people make love about other people all the time.
Yes.
And that's why we're always looking for outside validation instead of looking inwards. So that's number one. And I make them, okay, what's your relationship with love? And what do you want your relationship with love to be? And that goes back a little bit to childhood, because if your relationship with love was seeing your parents, fight all the time, be in a very aggressive and, just toxic relationship, love for you is a push-pull. Potentially, you'll be looking for a toxic relationship. It could be that it's not safe. So you become an avoidant attachment style, for example. So you really need to understand, what do you want your relationship with love to be going into the future? Then you need to get clear on the vision of what you want. So understanding your why.
Yeah.
So most people, when they're looking for love, are always making it about the partner.
That's right.
I want him to be 6'2". I want her to be blonde and have big boobs. I want him to be funny. I want her to cook. I want him to be financially well off, right? And when I have these clients come to me and they give me their list of what they're looking for, I'm like, get in line. You and the rest of the world all want the same thing. So it's not enough. You have to also ask yourself, what do I want and need from a relationship perspective? How do I want to grow and evolve with this person? How do I want them to show up for me? How do I want our communication style to be? How will we deal with money issues? Or when we have children, if you choose to have children, what's our philosophy? You really want to think more about the relationship, because that's the container for you to grow. It's not the person. If the person is 6'2" and beautiful, but doesn't have any communication style or can't manage conflict, doesn't know, what are you going to do in your relationship? Sure, you got beauty, but you got nothing else.
That's right.
So get clear on what it is you're looking for in a relationship. And I explain the difference between wants and needs, because wants for me are typically very superficial, like I just said, height, looks, want him to be financially well off, where needs are like air, breath, water. You can't live without. So what that does as an exercise is that you start focusing on what really matters.
Yes.
So as an example, when I had done my exercise, one of my fundamentals that I thought was a need was to be with someone that knows how to dance, because I love to dance. I had this fantasy that we'd go salsa dancing together, ballroom dancing, be the stars on the dance floor all the time.
Yeah.
And when I met my partner, one of the first questions I asked him, do you dance? And he was like, I'm kind of known to have 2 left feet. And I was like, oh my God, this is not possible. And I was like, do you have rhythm at least? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, can you do a little shoulder roll or something? And he was like, no. And I was devastated. But I remember what also in my list of needs was someone that had great communication style, somebody that was interested, that was attentive to my needs, someone that was really secure. I used to travel a lot and be in a male-dominated industry, so my job was entertaining and whining and dining with men, so I couldn't be with someone that was insecure, possessive, and jealous, wondering where I am, what I'm doing all the time. So I came to realize as we started to get to know each other, at the end of the day, dancing is important, but it's not what's going to make or break my relationship in the long run. So I identified what really mattered. So these things are more important to me than this. So it's really, that's the exercise to get you to observe. And that's why I say when we're dating, most people go into dating with wanting an outcome. And dating is about exploring, having fun, and practicing the skills you've identified that you screwed up over and over again on the other relationships, and making sure that you're not repeating the same mistakes.
Yes.
And making sure that you say, you know what, I thought this was important to me, but you know what, it's not actually. So I'm going to move this need to the wants list, and just it's there, but focus on this. So it changes your perspective on dating.
Yes.
And it makes you a better dater as well, because you see quality and over quantity, and you're focusing on the long-term picture, not just on the immediate. Because when we're dating, sometimes we're already, especially women, we project ourselves in the future all the time. I used to do that all the time. I hadn't even gone out on a date with a guy yet. And I'm like, oh my God, we've had 3 conversations and I can see myself going to the cottage and doing this and doing that. And I was like, oh my God, the pressure we put on ourselves.
Yes.
We haven't even met this person yet, right?
That's right.
So that's one big thing for single people. Now, for people that are in a relationship or just starting a relationship, you need to make sure that you have key fundamentals into place, the foundation, right?
Yes.
It's like if you don't have the proper walls that are built in your house will not stand the test of time. The walls will start cracking down. A relationship is the same thing. So you need to identify what those fundamentals are for you, because for some people they can be very different. But there are some key ones. Like for me, communication obviously is a key component. To be with someone that knows how to manage conflict, to be with someone that has the willingness to want to invest and work with you. Because sometimes there's always a partner that wants to do more than the other. So, and I say this, some people work at different speed. I work at a very high speed. My man works at a 3 steps down, but he's always willing to do it. But I also need to honor and respect his speed. And sometimes with one of the partners, we're like, what do you mean? Like, how come you're not getting it? So you have to understand your partner's speed.
That's right.
Acceptance, respect. You need to accept who you're with for all the good and all the bad. And I think that a lot of people, as they start getting into relationship, and this is why I say it's really important to be your true, authentic self. Don't pretend to be someone you're not. Don't pretend to accept things you do not. That's why the exercise of wants and needs are important, because then you learn to really be truthful to your desires and your needs instead of saying, you know what, I thought this was important, but I'm just going to shove this shit under the rug because I really like this person. I really want to be liked. That's going to come biting you later. So you really have to communicate your needs and your vision from the beginning.
That's right.
And not be afraid of it, because why would you want to be with someone that you can't be your true, authentic self?
100%. Yeah.
And it shocks me. And I say this for myself because I realized when I was 44 years old and I had decided to do things differently, like I teach in my book, it was the first time I went into a date, like literally talking to myself, and you're being all of you. All the too much and all the too little and all the whatever. It's like you're staying who you are. You're not accommodating. You're not pretending to be someone you're not. And it was the first time I did that at 44 years old. And I was like, wow. And today what's great, whenever I turn my back and I'm doing something crazy because I have this crazy side, I always have my partner looking at me with a big smile, and he loves it. And it's a nice place to always know that somebody loves you for who you are. That's and you can be all of you with the good and the bad.
Correct.
Yeah.
Amazing. Now, being a love and relationship coach, I got to ask you this question. So, and I want to get your perspective on it. And, my perspective as a man is a lot of guys take respect over love in relationships. What's your take on that? And why do you think that's more important for guys?
I think there's a two-part to this. I do believe that people should choose respect over love, because the love that we've been taught, as I said earlier, is not enough of the love. Love is not enough to sustain a long committed relationship. Not the idea of what love we've been taught.
That's right.
So love for me today, if you ask me the definition, that's why I ask people, get clear on what love means to you. Love for me used to be a fantasy when you really think about it. I was like passion, lust, butterflies, all this stuff. Love for me today is, number one, is feeling at peace.
Yes.
It's feeling safe. It's feeling accepted and respected. That's my definition of love. So I think a man in their DNA, they're providers, protectors, and procreators. And that, with societies how we've evolved, it's still in your DNA. It hasn't changed. But women have become providers, protectors. Like, we've become so masculine in our energy. Men don't really understand their role. And I see this with women all the time in relationship, really, what's the word in English? Minimizing, like really belittling their men.
That's right.
And I don't think that's good at all. Why would you belittle someone? You want to lift them up, make them feel who they are, and support them. So I'm not surprised to hear this. And that's my answer to that, is that I actually believe respect. shows a massive sign of love. Because
That's right.
love, with the definition people have today, is not enough. So
Beautiful. There's, again, I can go down a lengthy road with that, but I'll just leave it at that. And I love that answer. So Chantal, looking back at your own relationship journey, what's one of the hardest lessons you learned, and how did it shape your coaching style?
Oh my God, I'm still learning. It's a never-ending thing, and it's interesting. I had this conversation 2 weeks ago with a friend, because I'm always it's like someone's always looking at you with a how do you say, une loupe, eyeglass,
Microscope.
like a microscope. Thank you. Because I do teach, if integrity for me is very important, and everything I've learned, it's from my own personal experience. I don't pretend to talk about something that I haven't experienced. I think it's important to have experienced it to be able to talk about it, for me personally. So integrity and really living by practicing what I teach, basically. And one of the first things that I learned when I was started in my relationship was I quickly noticed that I was asking my man to change and become someone he wasn't. And for the example like this, because a lot of people will identify to this and recognize themselves. We would go on dates. We decided every other week I would plan a date, and my partner would plan a date. And I'm the adventure seeker. I'm the extrovert, if you hadn't already guessed. So I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's do that. Jeff was like, let's go to a restaurant. Okay. Second time, let's go to a restaurant. Okay. Third time, let's go to a restaurant. I start getting flustered, and I'm disappointed, because I'm like, really, dude? Like, you can't take it like a notch further? And I remember on the fourth date, I started getting attitude. Like, I was just starting to, and he was, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. We've all heard the girls, we love to say, yeah, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. And then by the end of the night, I would finally crack and tell him, this is not cool. You should push yourself outside your comfort zone a little bit more. And, he would feel like, shit, I disappointed you. I'm sorry. So we ended up having a shitty date night. And I got home, because this had been happening almost 3 times in a row. And I had a little conversation with myself, and I caught myself. I'm like, Chantal, you're asking him to be someone you always known he's not. He's not the adventure seeker. He's not that guy. He, has the intention behind it, but not to your level. So you're really great at organizing these dates. If you want them, you manage that. I call it the 80-20 rule, where when we get in a relationship, nobody's perfect. But if you do your homework properly, you'll get at least 80% of what you do. Choosing a partner is really important. And so 80%, but there's that 20% of imperfections, right? That will bother you, but what starts happening when we get into relationship, we start focusing on the 20% and forgetting all of the 80%. So I was starting to focus on the 20%. So I brought myself back. I was like, nope, he does this, there's this, there's this, there's this. That's why you picked him. So you know what? Bite you. Seriously, chill. And I apologized, and we moved on. And now I know, he's just not that person. So it's always about learning to eat a piece of your own humble pie.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing when you're in a relationship and you're so self-aware that you can catch yourself all the time and not be afraid to admit you're wrong. That's or say you're sorry, or say, "Ooh, you know what? I screwed up." So I would say that's one of them. And it's a daily thing, because I'm a control freak. I work at a very high pace thing, and as I said, my partner doesn't. So I still catch myself sometimes on some days, and I'm gonna blame it on perimenopause. Where I get so irritated and I snap, and I'm just like, I catch myself and I apologize. So I would say it's an ongoing battle. And I've really come to understand, when I say that a relationship is work, it's work. You really have to show up on a daily basis and give all your all, because it's really easy to get on this slippery slope and start taking each other for granted, getting lazy. Like this, I caught ourselves in the last 4 months. We're coming out of, winter, spring. We were like lazy, lots of TV. And I was like, you know what? We need to get on it. Like we need to get back at our date nights. And he was like, you're right. We do. So now we've like sat down, identified like, okay, what do we need to do? How are we going to do this? What are you taking on? We have that, I call it connection time. And it's not a date night. It's just basically connecting and doing a check-in, making sure like what's really going on. So it's kind of like that quality time, getting curious and creating a safe space so your person can share and you don't dismiss, you acknowledge what they do share. So, it's an ongoing lesson.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So we're almost at the end of our podcast, but before we end this podcast, we've come to a segment where I call rapid fire questions. Ooh. So I'm going to shoot some questions at you, and the first thing that comes to mind, say it out loud.
All right.
So what is your definition of love?
I think I said that. So my definition of love is peace, feeling safe, and being honored and respected, acknowledged, listened to, important. I just feel like I matter with this person. So that's my definition of love. And it's really grown, not just in my romantic relationship, but into the friendships that I have. It's really improved the kind of friendships that I have because of my new vision of love.
Good. What is the one belief about love you wish more people would let go of?
What is the one belief that you wish people would romanticizing it. Like, stop being in love with love. Like, just drop it. Relationships aren't working. Let's start looking at our relationship with love and relationships from a different perspective.
Amazing. What's one mindset habit you do daily no matter what?
Gratitude.
Amazing. So important.
Mm-hmm.
What's the one word that describes Chantal best?
Firecracker.
All right. What's the one piece of advice you'd give your younger self in one word?
Oh my God, one word? Be open. 2 words. It's like, be open. Be open.
Awesome. And lastly, where can people find you and your book?
Okay, where can people find me? So I have a website, raiseyourlovesignal.com, where when you go to the website, you can find the book. It's at Indigo. It's on Amazon, of course. And I am most active on Instagram. So my account is chantal.landreville. You can find me there. I'm also on TikTok. I recently launched my YouTube channel, so it's still pretty fresh. Nice. But please go visit me there. That's where I'll be doing longer extended content, like we have these beautiful conversations. And you can also join my Facebook group at Raise Your Love Signal as well.
Amazing.
Yes.
Again, thank you very much, Chantal, for spending this time with me today and, empowering the young lovers out there. And, there's a lot left that we could have talked about, and hopefully we'll have you back for a second session in here. And for all those out there, thank you for joining, and we'll hope to see you in the next episode. Take care, everybody.